Rimuru and Ultima goes to One Piece, Rimuru and Ultima x One Piece, by Veldanava-God. Chapter 44. The Duel of Conquerors. Sylphire's eyes gleamed as she sidestepped Chopper's punch with graceful ease, her movements as fluid as the wind itself. The air around her seemed to crackle with an invisible power as she calmly looked over her opponents, her lips curving into a mocking smile. "I can see why they sent you here," she said, her voice as cold as ice, "but none of you are leaving this place alive." With a single, focused breath, Sylphira released a wave of advanced Conqueror's haki. The intense pressure washed over the battlefield like a thunderstorm. The revolutionary soldiers and Law's crew members around Zoro, Robin, and Chopper fell to the ground one by one, unconscious before they even understood what hit them. Chopper and Robin staggered, feeling the crushing weight of Sylphira's spirit bearing down on them. What? What is this?" Chopper grunted, his legs buckling as he struggled to stay upright. Robin pressed her hands to her temples, her eyes narrowed in concentration. Such overwhelming haki. Zoro, however, gritted his teeth and stood firm, the fierce glint in his eye unyielding. He closed his eyes briefly, drawing on his own willpower, then opened them again with a glare just as powerful as Sylphira's. In an instant, his conqueror's haki exploded outward, clashing with hers midair in a silent, deadly duel of wills. The air between them crackled and sparked with sheer force. Rocks on the ground began to tremble and crack under the pressure of their spirits colliding, and the few remaining soldiers who were barely conscious fell as Zoro's haki clashed with Sylphira's. Neither side yielded, the space between them humming with an almost electric intensity. Sylphira's smirk faltered as she realized what she was up against. "So, you have it too," she murmured, her eyes narrowing. "I should have expected as much from someone who fights by a Yonku's side." Zoro grinned, his swords at the ready. "If you thought a little intimidation was enough to scare me off, you're dead wrong." Sylphira laughed, though there was a slight edge of irritation in her voice. "Interesting. I haven't had a real opponent in some time. But you're still just the right-hand man. Don't get too full of yourself just because you managed to hold out against my haki." Zoro's grin widened, his grip tightening on his swords. "If you think I'm going down just because of your fancy tricks, you've got another thing coming." Robin took a deep breath, recovering from the oppressive weight of Sylphira's haki. She looked over at Zoro. "Zoro, should we?" "Robin, Chopper," Zoro barked, not taking his eyes off Sylphira. "You two go and take down that tower. I'll handle her." Robin's brow furrowed with concern. "Are you sure?" Zoro nodded, his expression as determined as ever. "I've got this. Just get moving." Chopper, still feeling the lingering effects of Sylphira's conqueror's haki, looked between Zoro and Robin with a shaky nod. "All right. But be careful, Zoro." Robin hesitated a moment longer, her eyes flicking between Zoro and Sylphira. But she understood the unspoken trust between them. She and Chopper had their mission, and Zoro wouldn't let anything stand in his way. With a final nod, she turned and gestured for Chopper to follow her toward the control tower. Sylphira watched them go, a bemused smile playing on her lips. "Do you really think you can stop me from going after them? You're arrogant for a mere right-hand man." Zoro chuckled, settling into his battle stance. "Arrogant? Maybe. But that just means I'm gonna enjoy taking you down even more." In a flash, Sylphira lunged forward, her blade a streak of silver in the air. Zoro parried with his swords, the force of her strike resonating through his arms. She was fast, faster than he'd anticipated. Their swords clashed in rapid succession, each one testing the other's skill and speed. Sylphira's movements were as fluid and sharp as a gust of wind, but Zoro matched her blow for blow, his own technique honed by years of battles. She laughed, her eyes alight with excitement as their blades continued to meet in a storm of sparks and steel. "You're better than I expected," she admitted, her voice a low murmur as she stepped back to catch her breath. Zoro smirked, holding his sword steady. "And you're tougher than you look. But I've fought plenty of people like you, people who think they're invincible." Sylphira's expression darkened. "I am invincible," she snapped, lunging forward again with renewed aggression. Her attacks were even faster, fueled by a growing frustration. Zoro blocked and deflected each one, his grin never wavering. "Is that right? Because from where I'm standing, you're looking pretty desperate," he taunted, sidestepping a particularly wild swing. Sylphira growled, throwing herself at him with all her might. Her haki flared, coating her blade in a shimmering aura as she aimed a powerful strike at his shoulder. Zoro met her attack head-on, his own blade glowing with the dark sheen of advanced armament haki. The impact sent a shockwave through the air, rattling the stones beneath their feet. They broke apart, both breathing hard, but Zoro's grin only grew wider. "Looks like you're putting in some effort now. What happened to being invincible?" Sylphira glared at him, fury flashing in her eyes. "You're going to regret that." She took a deep breath, channeling her energy as her haki flared even brighter. The ground around her began to tremble as she gathered her power. Zoro's gaze hardened, his stance firm as he prepared for her next move. Suddenly, she shot forward with a speed that left even Zoro briefly caught off guard. She slashed at him from every direction, her blade a blur. Zoro blocked and dodged, his focus sharp as he countered her assault with every ounce of his strength and skill. The two fighters were locked in an intense rhythm, their movements perfectly matched as they clashed again and again. Neither of them held back, their haki-infused attacks carving deep gashes into the stone floor and shattering the air with the force of their blows. "Give up already," Sylphira hissed, her voice laced with frustration as she swung at him with a powerful overhead strike. "Not a chance," Zoro replied, blocking her attack and pushing her back. He took a deep breath, his gaze steely. "I don't lose to people like you." Sylphira gritted her teeth, anger flaring in her eyes. She launched herself at him again, her attacks becoming increasingly reckless. Zoro could feel the strain in his arms, but he refused to falter. He met each of her blows with unyielding determination, his mind focused on one goal: winning. Finally, Sylphira made a critical misstep, overextending on a particularly aggressive swing. Zoro seized the opportunity, countering with a powerful slash that caught her off guard and left a deep cut across her arm. She stumbled back, clutching her wound, her expression twisted with rage. You dare injure me?" Zoro shrugged, a smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Like I said, you're not invincible." Sylphira's eyes narrowed, her jaw clenched. "You're going to pay for that." She steadied herself, the air around her growing thick with tension as she summoned every last bit of her strength. Zoro readied his swords, his muscles tensed, prepared for whatever she threw at him next. They stood across from each other, both battered and bruised, yet neither willing to back down. The intensity in their eyes spoke volumes. They were both warriors who lived for the thrill of battle, and neither would rest until one of them fell. With a final roar, they charged at each other, their haki-infused blades clashing in an explosion of power. Sparks flew as they exchanged blow after blow, each one more ferocious than the last. The walls around them began to crumble under the sheer force of their attacks, but they paid no heed, fully consumed by the battle. Sylphira's movements became more frantic, her frustration mounting as Zoro continued to match her. She pushed herself to her limits, her strikes growing wild and desperate, but Zoro's composure remained unshaken. Finally, as they locked blades once more, Zoro leaned in, his gaze piercing. "You're strong, but that's not enough. This is where it ends." With a final surge of power, Zoro broke through her defenses, delivering a decisive strike that sent her sprawling to the ground. Sylphira lay there, breathing hard, her body trembling with exhaustion. She looked up at Zoro, her eyes filled with disbelief and fury. How could I lose?" Zoro sheathed his swords, his expression calm and unwavering. "You lost because you underestimated us. We're not here to play games, we're here to win." As he turned away, Robin and Chopper appeared in the distance, their mission to destroy the tower complete. They looked at Zoro, relief and pride in their eyes. "Nice work, Zoro," Robin said with a soft smile. Chopper grinned, giving him a thumbs up. "You really did it." Zoro nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Just doing my job. Let's move on. We've still got a long way to go." And with that, the Straw Hat crew continued their journey, leaving behind a defeated Sylphira and moving one step closer to their goal.